I'm Christy Duffy for Smart Trend News. Exxon Mobil Corporation is due to report its second quarter earnings on July 29th. Average analyst recommendation on the stock is currently overweight with an $80 price target. And the second quarter EPS estimate is at $1.45, $5.68 for the year. Last quarter, the company had an EPS of $1.33, and a year ago, the EPS was $4.01 for the year. With me to discuss what can be expected is senior energy analyst from Argus Research, Philip Weiss. Phil, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Christy.
Phil, what are your estimates for the EPS for the quarter as well as for the year?
I'm slightly above the consensus figures that you cited. I'm at $1.47 for the quarter and $5.75 for the year for Exxon.
Okay, and sorry, what was that?
I was going to say I have an $80 price target on the shares.
Okay, thank you. XOM is trading up slightly Monday afternoon at a price of $58.80 on the big news that XOM may potentially be a buyer of BP. Do you think that Exxon should get involved with BP?
No, I don't. I could see possibly Exxon being interested in some assets, but as with Chevron and other companies that have been mentioned today in connection with BP, to buy the company, to me, just doesn't make a lot of sense because you're taking on all the liabilities that come with it. I could see selective buying of assets, but it doesn't make sense to me to go buy BP in this situation.
What assets particularly do you think that they could be interested? North American assets? Do you think that would present problems in terms of it being a British company? The biggest British oil producer, I believe, so wouldn't they run into problems perhaps trying to acquire some assets or the entire company from Britain?
To acquire assets, I don't think that the fact that it's a British company has all that much impact. I could see Exxon possibly being interested in some deepwater Gulf type assets if those were made available, and if there was some comfort about the resumption of deepwater activity and what impact there might be from regulation on that activity. As far as an acquisition of the whole company, since it's such an important company in Britain, again, it doesn't seem as likely that that would happen, only because I'm not so sure that this is such an important business in the UK, and the philosophies of the two companies are different enough that I'm not sure that the British people would be all that excited to see Exxon come in and take over BP, especially if you look at things like its dividend history, where BP paid very generous dividends up until the recent suspension of the dividend, while Exxon's dividends are much lower.
Well, in other Exxon acquisition news, they just closed their deal to buy XTO on June 25th. The $41 billion merger, including debt, should greatly help Exxon's position in the development of unconventional resources, which should create long-term value for shareholders. Moreover, the merger undoubtedly brings good news for Americans, as it is a step toward the production of more clean and natural gas. Since the merger and over the past 2 months, XOM has been selling off. Do you anticipate a reverse in trend as their earnings announcement approaches, considering your prediction for a strong balance sheet and the finalization of the merger agreement?
I would think that as the merger moves into the rearview mirror, that Exxon should start to do better. It has been an underperforming stock. I think the XTO deal is good for Exxon and its shareholders. It should benefit production. It's going to initially be neutral to cash flow. There'll be a little bit of earnings dilution, but over time I expect that this deal will add to Exxon's earnings and cash flow, and shareholders will be pleased with it.
So would you recommend investors buy now at a discount? All right. And in the long term, are you optimistic about the domestic natural gas market?
Optimistic over the long term than I am over the short term, because I think that if I go back to when the Obama administration came into power and was looking to win the election, I thought that they had a lot more positive to say about natural gas than it seems like they've said subsequently. I think that things like what's happened in the Gulf of Mexico and just the overall desire to have cleaner burning fuels, as well as to reduce our dependence upon foreign sources of hydrocarbons, should benefit natural gas in the long term. Now, I'm not so sure that we see it become a major transportation fuel, but I could easily see it replacing more coal, in particular from an electricity generation standpoint. And if we were to put more batteries into cars, then we do need a way to generate the electricity to run those batteries, and natural gas could again be important there.
All right, and sorry, go ahead.
That's right. The other thing that I would say about natural gas too is that if we're to use other alternative energy sources like wind and solar, that those need to have something to kind of bridge the gaps, because there's times when those sources cannot generate the requisite capacity. There's also peak periods when you need additional capacity, and because it's easier to start up and stop natural gas plants, it can also be kind of that bridge fuel as well.
All right, thanks so much, Phil. I'm Christy Duffy for Smart Trend News. For more earnings updates, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. That's Trade the Trend. Also, check our website, tradethetrend.com, for more headlines.